Watt of North Carolina State University Wood Products Extension. This is the National Firewood Workshop 2021. I'm here interviewing Joe Nay of the Ohio Woodburner, ohiowoodburner.com. He's going to talk to us today about how you can make a firewood business using splitters and a progression from small to large. Joe, take it away.
Yeah, hi, Harry, thank you for having me. And hello to all the viewers. So, splitting wood is the key, to a successful firewood company. My experiences have been the smaller the split, the more money it is worth. So you think of big chunk wood for boilers, you can buy that pretty cheap no matter what time of the season it is. When you start getting into smaller splits for fireplaces, for chimneys, for restaurants, kindling, right? The smaller it gets, the more money it's worth. So what I had learned was there's value in resplitting. And just like everyone else, what I don't have is my axe. Okay, that's how I started splitting firewood, as probably everyone else has with an axe. So you learn quick. It's a lot of fun. At least for me, it was a lot of fun for about 5 minutes, and then I didn't feel like doing it anymore. And when I started growing, I noticed the first thing that started growing was the bar length on my saw. So I would get a bigger piece of wood and I'd have to start splitting it. And my first attempt at splitting wood with a machine was, a big box store 27-ton log splitter. And, these are reliable, they'll last forever. They're lightweight and portable. You can move them all around the yard, but gosh, are they slow. Slow. You can lay down in bed and work one of these. But the benefit is, that these can also go vertical if you do have big pieces of wood that you need to split up. So I had one of these for a while, but when I was trying to make the firewood that I was wanting to make, I thought, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a faster way. And enter, for us, the Kinetic splitter. All right, here. Mine is the super splitter made in Boston, Massachusetts.
Well, tell us about it's the super splitter. I believe Paul McCann is the gentleman that makes that and sells it. I see a lot of them out in the business for resplits because it's so fast, but I've seen him operate it, and he is incredibly fast, even with big wood with that. Yeah.
So I'll turn my camera around here, Harry. The super split, they're made in Boston. They work off of two 75-pound flywheels. There's one here and there's one here. And they just spin a rack, a pinion. The lever engages the rack, and then that forces out the ram. It's got a 2-second cycle time. And good heavens, for bang for the buck, I think you could probably spend $3,000 for one of these, double what you would pay for a hydraulic splitter, but the production is 10 times, and I'm serious, what you can get out of something like this. It's not the perfect machine. It does come with its trade-offs, but if you are looking for resplitting, if you're looking to get into a value-added market, restaurants, high-end residential bundles, you can't beat a Kinetic splitter. And there's a lot of different brands out there now, but I'm serious. This is probably the most influential machine for my company. And this is what put us onto a different level. It was just a simple, elegant machine. They also, since it runs with kinetic power, it's not turning a hydraulic pump. You can run these at a lower RPM. The gas that you use is very minimal, and the cycle time is just amazing. You'll be up to your earlobes and split wood in no time with one of these. Yes, but there are trade-offs though, Harry. People always say, well, they don't split big wood, and I disagree. I believe if you can lift the log up onto this cradle, it will split it. You can still disengage and re-engage to work it through the knife, but it'll split big wood, it'll split stringy wood, it'll split elm, it splits hickory, it splits gum, it'll split anything that you put up here. The limiting factors though, you don't like running these when it's raining outside. So you're kind of left to running it on good weather days. The challenge is the top beam on these. They have these bearings are the limiting factors. So these bearings can get gummed up, and you can see this one here has got some gum on it. If you're not paying attention, you know, when you're dealing with wet wood, it'll press that gunk into the beam, and that bearing will get gunked up, and then it will quit spinning, and you run a risk of cutting a groove into your beam and ruining the bearing. So you got to keep up with that. The other thing too, and at least for me, Harry, it was, well, it'll split anything that you can lift up onto that. As I started growing, I physically didn't want to do it anymore. You know, you're still using your back to lift logs up onto that cradle. And after a while, I had to make an adjustment. You know, I had to look for a different machine because this is my #1 go-to for resplitting. Absolutely it is. But, you know, the challenge that I have a firewood processor, the Yappa that you can see over my shoulder here. Well, the challenge with that Yappa is it will only take up to a 14-inch diameter log, not very big in the real world of logging. It was okay at that volume that I was doing because I could pick and choose the log trucks that would come, and I would reject trucks that were bringing in these gigantic rounds. But as I got bigger, I needed wood, and I couldn't reject logging trucks anymore. The challenge was I would cut the butt ends off these logs to help them go through my splitter or to go through the firewood processor. Well, I couldn't physically lift them up onto the Kinetic splitter anymore. And if I did, you know, I was just killing myself and running the risk of hurting my back, which isn't going to get me real far in this industry. And that was when I decided, you know, I had to start looking for a commercial grade log splitter, something that could pick the logs up off the ground for me. And that is where we ran into Andrew Easton of the Easton Made wood splitter company from Perth, Canada. And you know, so this doesn't look like your traditional splitter because it's vertical. When I was looking at a traditional horizontal commercial splitter with a log lift, I would still think I would have to resplit off of that because, you know, it's pushing the wood away from me. It's going through the knife and up a conveyor. I'd have to keep pulling the wood back to run it through again. It just seemed like I wasn't going to be getting any farther ahead because I would still have to use this. You know, it would have the log lift, but I would still be doing a lot of resplitting. The vertical though, with the foot pedal, you can use both hands to precision cut your logs. And with the log lift, problem solved. So I don't do any resplitting because the Axis, this commercial splitter, makes a finished product before it goes up that conveyor.
Well, I got a question there about that. You're going to operate it in a minute, and you'll show us how you can control the size of the splits.
Yep.
And you do that a lot of times in your cooking wood because you really want a uniform split for them.
Yeah. Restaurants are very particular. They want the wood to look good, and it can't be too big, you know, and you know, the smaller splits too helps me out because it helps the wood season out faster. You know, so there's a hidden benefit in there for me. But you know, that gets to the heart of my belief. You know, smaller splits equals more money.
So here's a question for you. You've
Sure.
got 3 splitters there. If I had to go buy all 3 today, what gross budget would I need if I bought all 3 that you have?
Sure. You know, these big box splitters, and I don't believe that you need to buy the big ones. I think the small ones work just fine. I think you're looking at anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000. So let's just say 1,500. You know, for
Okay.
a good quality hydraulic splitter. You can pull this behind your lawnmower or your 4-wheeler, you know, your pickup truck down the road. The Kinetic splitters are anywhere between $2,500 to $3,500. I think you can get a super splitter for $3,000 pretty easy, you know, shipped right to your house. These are very portable. They're light. You can pick that up and push that around the yard to wherever you want it to split. They're not road worthy. So you're limited to just, the wood yard that it's in. If you're going to take it, to the other side of the county, you got to trailer it. The Easton made axis, while it does have some features like the conveyor, well, that's hard for me to do looking at myself backwards. The conveyor adds some money to it. I think you're going to look around probably anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000 for the Easton made axis. And what this brings you though is 24/7 firewood. This thing will work in any kind of weather. It doesn't stop. It's built like a tank. The trade-offs is it's just a big, heavy machine. You can't really pull this around by yourself or even a lawnmower. It's just too heavy. You got to have a truck to move it or a tractor with a hitch. It is loud. If you are sensitive to your neighbors, this probably wouldn't be the splitter you want in your backyard, because man, it'll wake the dead. It's pretty loud. It's got that big 14 horse, 1-cylinder engine on it, and it makes quite a racket.
Well, let me ask you one question. If I've got you totaled up, I'll say generously $18,000. If I was working full time and trying to sell seasoned firewood, what sales level could I reach in a year?
Are you talking about what can I produce with these 3 machines?
Yeah, if you're working by yourself and you're making deliveries, what would be a reasonable gross sales for me?
Yeah, I think for a sole proprietor, I'll just use me as an example. I love doing this, but I don't love it where I'm going to do it 24/7. I think it is reasonable, and we're not talking about running a saw here either. I think it's reasonable to split 1 cord a day, for 5 days a week. So if you can maximize how much you're getting for your firewood, if you're in a metropolitan market, you're selling your firewood for $500 a cord. And some people might find that offensive, but it's very, very real. So you're looking at, don't ask me about numbers, but 1 cord during business days times 500. There you go.
Well, that's pretty good. We'll just take it for a week. So 5 times 500 is 2,500 times 50. That's over $100,000 a year.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
That's your top line. So you still got to buy the wood, and if you're doing that kind of volume, chances are you're not getting your wood for free. I don't know, maybe if you have a good relationship with tree service, but tree service, in my experience, doesn't work good for restaurants. Because you got to control your species.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you want to fire up some machines for show and tell?
Yeah. So how about I just let's forego our traditional hydraulic splitter, because I think we all know how that runs. But I'll get the super splitter fired up. Let's see how it goes, and then we'll compare it with the Easton made axis. How's that sound?
Thank you much. Let's do it.
All right. Okay. Set these like this. Okay, ready?
Okay, we're recording.
Okay. So Harry, here's what I'm going to do. I got a few resplits. This would just be a typical job for the super splitter. Resplitting these, making them smaller. But I have a hickory round and a oak round. So we'll get these split with the super splitter. I'll show you how this works. It went through the knot pretty good. This is an oak round. last one is the hickory round. So we got a nice full wheelbarrow, and you think that's probably three bundles of wood in here. And if you're selling bundles, you know, you just made yourself some very nice small splits, and you made a lot of money in about 2 minutes of splitting.
That's really good. Let's say you're selling that for $6. That's $18 in just a minute or two.
Right. Yeah. So let's move over to the Easton made axis. And I'm serious, Harry, when this came onto the woodlot, everything changed for us. There's nothing that we can't do now. All the big logs, I can get them picked up with the log lift. I have a conveyor that goes into the trailer, and I can make a finished product with this. So let's get this started up. Log lift. So there you go, Harry. You know, look at this. This is looks to be white oak, split small, and it's a finished product. So there's no resplitting done with this. This can go right out to the drying yard and it can start drying out.
Well, that's really good job. It's very rectangular. It's like a grid, and you can, based on what your customer wants, whether they're doing pizza wood or barbecue or whatever, you can give them exactly what they want.
Right, especially in this part of the country, people split their oak small here to begin with because, you know, it takes forever to dry out. But, you know, this is my first experience with square wood, you know, because you are making a grid with the cuts. The super splitter makes triangle pieces, and I learned the value of square pieces right away with, you know, making bundles, because I have a bundler that we make. Square pieces look great in that.
I got one question on the super splitter. I understand it comes with a two-way and a four-way wedge. You've got what we call a two-way there. It also comes with a four-way.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what, you know, let's talk similarity here. I really do think that there's a lot to be said for a single wedge fast cycle splitter. I think that the four-way wouldn't work right with, even if this was a hydraulic one that had the extra strength to it, I don't think the four-way would work right. You'd waste too much wood. Okay. And that's the benefit of the single knife. You know, you can pick and choose. If you're coming up on a knot, you can work around it.
Okay. Well, anything else you want to talk to us about is, I guess, a splitter-based firewood business.
Yeah, well, you know, the splitter is a must-have. And, you know, that's where I think you find the kind of market that you're in, the kind of market that you're going for, and what your budget would allow, and, you know, the volume that you're going to be in. You know, if you are in a 50-ish to 100 cord business, this might be too much. For my charted growth, I couldn't get there, though, without this. That's why it made so much sense to get. But, you know, just don't think that you're limited to what's out there at, you know, your big box stores and those big slow hydraulic splitters. These Kinetic splitters, there's a lot to be said on the way they can contribute to any firewood business. I don't care how big you are. For your resplitting, you can add a lot of value pretty cheap with one of these.
Right. I see a lot of processors that when they stop to resplit on the processor, it just kills their productivity.
Right. Well, and, you know, that is, you know, your decision making too on the processor if you're going to go that route, and, you know, find the right processor too that it can make those splits. I used my first processor was just making me big chunks that I had to resplit. This super splitter touched every single split in this yard up until when we got the Yappa 365, because it just makes a nicer, smaller cut, and it makes me a nice finished product. Out of a whole cord, I'll probably have 2 or 3 resplits out of the entire trailer full of wood.
Okay. Well, Joe, thanks for being with us today. This is Joe Nay of the Ohio Woodburner.com, and we will see you down the road hauling wood, I guess.
Yeah, you better believe it, Harry. You're always welcome up here in Northeast Ohio.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.